Hello and welcome to Venus and Pearls, What is in Your Jewellery Box? I am Zuleika Gerrish, a jewellery historian and one half of Parkin and Gerrish. And today I am here with my husband, Oliver Gerrish, and Henry Conway. And Henry Conway is I've known him for years. He's the dandy, he's the party planner, he's so many clubs. I don't know how else you would like to describe.
Dandy and party planner, I think, is definitely, that's good. Queen of the night. That's
Man about town.
Man about town. It about town. Oliver, as you well know, once said, is he an it boy, is he an it girl, or is he just it?
He's just it.
Fine, I was gender bending long time before it became fashionable.
And I've known Hen since I was 13.
Exactly.
Best friends from school, ever since we put next to each other in the choir and sang all the hymns in Yorkshire accents.
In Yorkshire accents,
yeah.
Chaos. Absolute chaos. It was great fun.
That was at Harrow.
That was at Harrow, yes. And then Henry then went on to the Courtauld. And what did you study there again, Hen?
I did my BA in sort of general history of art. Quite a lot of history of dress, though. I was involved in that. And then my master's was in history of architecture, which is, I have not kept it up. This one has kept it up. I have not kept up my architecture.
Maybe you're very involved with the Georgian group.
It's true, I was very involved in the Georgian group. Which was great fun, and I still love architecture. I just don't write about it like you do. Right?
Well, you can't write about everything.
This is true, but I've been
you're a fashion writer.
I now am in the wonders of like fashion and nightlife and all things glamour.
And you've written a book.
I wrote a book, on knitwear about 10 years ago now.
Couture.
Knit couture, about the history of knitting. And knitwear,
and you even included aeroplanes in it, or something. It was
aeroplanes?
No, I thought it was to do about with the way they knitted together the fiberglass.
I was like, what? Well, yeah, yes, fiber. Yes, in fact, yeah, the part of the exterior. It's so true. Well, that's really well remembered.
I remembered.
The exterior of a Boeing is knitted.
Exactly. There we go.
It is knitted.
What have John Travolta and the Boeing 7? Does John Travolta knit, or is it?
No, he. Malkovich knits. John Travolta just flies planes.
Oh,
yes. I think that's probably what was going on. So lots of party organisation, which was great. So I'm always gadding about opening restaurants, opening nightclubs, opening
I remember all those
hotels.
Nights at Mahiki.
Oh, so many nights at
Mahiki.
Wonderful. R.I.P. Mahiki.
Oh my goodness me, Mahiki. Or as my parents called it, the Mahikis.
The Mahikis.
Instead, today we're at Park Row.
We are indeed.
Which is in Soho, technically.
It's in Soho, it's on Brewer Street. So this used to be the Titanic, which was Marco Pierre White's big restaurant in the 90s. It was kind of a real focus point of the 90s.
Was it all redecorated, or was it the deco sort of interior?
So the deco stuff can't be touched. So
it's real deco stuff?
That's real deco. So they've had to kind of work around the deco. So it was a huge space, like the Atlantic, like the Trocadero actually was, in terms of big ball spaces in London. So it was hugely fashionable just before the Second World War. We are making it fashionable again. But like the Trocadero, so the Trocadero also was a kind of a place of huge bashes. Here was the Atlantic Bar, which this is actually connected to.
It really through some underground passage.
Like if we want to knock through a door, you get through, which is now Brasserie Zedel.
Oh, of course.
So you have these two in this kind of part of Soho. You have these huge underground spaces. You've got this Atlantic. And now Zedel, the Trocadero, which is kind of changed. It's now basically a whole load of like games, machines or something.
Oh yes, slot machines.
I think there's a kind of weird museum there as well. And then of course famously the Café de Paris as well.
Yes, of course.
Which is on. So they're all on a kind of fork around 3 streets, which is quite fun.
Well, it's amazing these huge spaces you suddenly come across them underground.
This one in particular is quite cool because you enter with what looks like a sort of a gentleman's sitting room or library, and then the door opens,
a secret
the smoke
door.
comes in, and then you've got this incredible experience coming downstairs. And
you just have to imagine Henry in a cape.
And I love to wear a cape here.
Because Henry is one of the best dressed man in London. You've always been beautifully dressed. Apart from one or two things at school where you tried a quiff and it looked like a tiara. It was so perfect. Some horrific mistakes and you had those little butterflies in your hair.
Clips. I used to have butterfly clips in my hair. So funny. And do you remember those? I was obsessed with Tommy Hilfiger and I had the great big H on the back.
Oh yeah, you had that. Then you had your pager, your purple pager, which you wore here. Anyway, you tried things out, which is always important, isn't it?
And then the worst, which was horrific, I had buffalo shoes, the 2.5-inch platform Spice Girls trainers.
Yes.
I mean, so funny.
Extraordinary.
So funny. So funny. Your parents used to be...
My parents were
they think, what the hell is going on? What is it? My parents were even worse.
Well, we'll start with some of the questions, which is, can you tell us about your first love for jewellery and first started, and what's your earliest memory?
My earliest memory of jewellery?
1930s.
Well, 1930s when I was a young girl about town. No, I used to, actually, it has to be Mummy's mum, Mummy Grand Lamb, who used to wear beautiful jewellery, of which, Mummy now has. And she used to wear big necklaces. Obviously, I was focusing on the female jewellery. Didn't really care about the male jewellery. I'm such a magpie. I'd be like, no, I remember. So one of the favourite things that she had was an aquamarine ring that turned out to be a fake aquamarine. Well, actually, it might not have been a fake aquamarine when it was bought for her by my grandfather. We think it may have been one of those horrific things that happened a lot in the 60s, where they swapped it.
Oh, of course, when it went to be cleaned or something.
Exactly, and they reckon that probably happened in the 60s. But anyway, it was a really extraordinary ring, and I used to love it. So that was kind of first thing. But I always, even as a kid, I was always dressing up, pretending to put on tiaras and I loved rings and those kind of sweet shop rings. I suppose I'd put on those candy rings.
Oh, yes.
I'd love those candy
the ones you
rings.
can eat.
Yeah, they were great fun. So
when did you move on from edible jewellery?
From edible jewellery. I think I must have been a teen. No, I used to wear lots at school, if you remember. I'm like, it was definitely not prep school. It was definitely at school. Oh, no, at prep school, prep school, I would wear those snap bands. You remember?
Oh, yes, our daughter has those.
Yeah.
She loves it.
They were really cool. Although at the time, I remember, I think they were withdrawn from market.
Because they were dangerous.
Because they were dangerous and slashing people's wrists. But luckily, I came off.
Now they're made of
plastic.
Plastic.
So I had those, aged kind of 9, 10. And then, of course, friendship bracelets. We made friendship bracelets.
Yes.
I spent quite a lot of time with the girls. The girls at school, as you might have seen. And then other kind of rings I then started wearing at Harrow. So not long after we met, then I would start wearing...
Yeah, you always...
you remember I had kind of little silver rings on.
You always had jewellery, didn't you?
I always had a cross as well, actually, because the family's Catholic. So I had 2 crosses. I had a St. Christopher, and I had, I think I had a first Holy Communion cross, and then a confirmation cross as well.
But you've always been very good at dressing, because you know how to dress formally, and then you also can dress very, very unshowily, and then you can go complete peacock, like a Georgian person.
Break the rules.
Break the rules.
I love breaking the rules.
You always somehow manage to look stylish. I think it's quite an achievement, isn't it?
So is this your sort of everyday look at the moment?
Yeah. This would be a kind of sort of going to a. I don't know, for example, we're in Soho. I might wear this to a meeting in Soho and then out to dinner. There's actually a Moroccan jacket from De Velasco who makes all of the royal family stuff in Marrakesh. These wonderful geometric patterns, and they're really great for wearing a brooch.
Oh yes, and
I'm wearing a Parkin and Gerrish special here,
and it's extraordinary. It looks like
It looks like
a fountain
pen.
pen.
Yeah, it's got. I know you'd have to be a bit careful.
But you've worn it as an epaulette, haven't you?
Worn it as an epaulette, which is great fun. Yeah. Actually, I've worn quite a few things as epaulettes before, which is quite fun. And then I've got this great little thing here as well, which is pearls. You must tell me more about this, because this is one of your pieces.
Well, it is. That's platinum, Burma rubies, pearl and diamonds as well.
A necklace, but so
what's it called? A sautoir? No,
it's a sautoir. It would have been on a sautoir, probably. On a long rope.
So I do like necklaces. I love these as brooches. I wear quite a lot of brooches. I first started buying brooches. Again, at school.
Yes. Well, you've got one of the largest collections of cubic
zirconia.
When you die, there'll be a huge sale.
Huge sale. I was always like joking. There'll be a huge sale of cubic zirconia when I'm gone, which I started collecting. Although I have to say, I have to thank you for, because I used to only buy kind of crap jewellery, sort of like full, you know, proper costume jewellery. Not even proper costume jewellery.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Which is great fun. Yeah. But then you were like, Hen, stop buying so much of this, and actually just buy individual pieces,
which you have done,
which I now do, which is great fun. But I do still love costume jewellery. Yes. I've always loved costume jewellery.
Well, jewellery's with the thrill of it, isn't it? Really, it's or it's highly personal. Like I know you've got some personal jewellery as well.
Which I'll show you. But it was, even when I was at school, I was kind of I used to experiment the whole time with wearing big costume jewellery, experimenting with how I wanted to look, and it was pretty early gender bending stuff, to be honest. It was quite, you know,
it was just you, really,
it was just me, but I was never afraid to kind of mix it up, and I would wear big necklaces from Claire's Accessories. I go to Steinberg and Tolkien, Steinberg and Tolkien, and all of those kind of things, and wear all sorts of silly things. It's great fun.
And you've bought some of your jewellery.
I have. I thought I'd show you. So this is a really special piece. So, and Ols met her as well.
Yes.
This is Lily de Falaise.
Lulu of the suitcase.
Lulu of the suitcase, we used to call, who was the accessories designer for Yves Saint Laurent, a huge part of Yves Saint Laurent's life. So not just her, not just his muse. I mean, her and Betty Catrou were the most important women in her life.
And it's Lulu's. The nightclub is named after Lulu.
Exactly, Lulu's nightclub is named after her. She really taught me about colour. I remember I met her. So our great friend Louise. Also a Lulu, but when she was working with Lulu, would be known as Louise.
Yes.
Not to have too many Lulus.
Not too many Lulus.
Too many Lulus. Would I went and interviewed her. That's how I first kind of met her. And she would tell me. So she loved costume jewellery. She didn't have very fine jewellery. She had one very famous. There's a very, very famous story about her. The big diamond that she had was a gift, I think, from Karl Lagerfeld, that came in a giant bag of cocaine at her wedding.
Goodness me! And
there was this giant diamond hidden in the. It's written in a very famous book about the then rivalry between Karl Lagerfeld and Yves Saint Laurent. They always had this kind of strange rivalry all going along. But when Lulu got married, they were all great friends, and they were all doing it's 70s, and they were all doing so many drugs.
Karl Lagerfeld's a very famous jewellery collector.
Exactly.
Big jewellery.
So he would have had. I'm sure he would have had plenty of Lulu, because they were great friends. But I kind of love, this is, it's rope, it's metal, it's like, it's wood, it's tassels.
Is that a sort of one-off piece as well?
This is a one-off piece. So and it was all kind of Moroccan inspired, and it kind of, it's a. I don't think it'll fit around my hair. My hair is huge today. And you'd wear it as a kind of sort of long, again, like a sautoir. We were talking about sautoirs. It's quite fun.
It's really smart.
The tangles. I've got another one that needs.
It's a real sort of collector's item, isn't it?
And she did loads of, but she taught me a lot about colour, because she was like clash. I know I'm not wearing enormous amounts of colour today, but she would be clash. She'd love throwing together reds and oranges in that kind of sort of oriental way that she was obsessed with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can see it with that.
He obviously did lots of collections that were inspired by the Ballet Russe, and I think she was a real kind of big part of helping him research all of that. But she was the most wonderful woman. She gave a dinner party. Yeah, she was really cool. She gave a dinner party once where she sat me next to Marissa Berenson.
Oh goodness,
that's great. Lady Lyndon.
Yes, goodness.
And she was wearing some pretty stonky jewellery that night as well. Like, she was really
It's very good meeting these people when you're very young, because you don't quite know. Because you're not sort of intimidated by them, because you don't know the backstory. I mean, you knew more about.
I knew more about
the fashion world, but I remember when you saw her a lot. When the one time I met her, I didn't really know about her until I looked up afterwards, and I thought she was charming.
This is
so nice to young people.
Yeah. We met so many legendary people.
Yeah, over the years. Do you remember Kirsty Hesketh with the eye patch?
The eye patch.
She was
very glamorous.
She'd been a football reporter or correspondent, and then she'd ridden motorbikes at that beautiful house Eastern Neston. Remember?
Oh yeah. Who then? Because they were about to sell it, weren't they? Well, they had to.
They were about to. And she was moving out of that lovely Gothic house.
She was. I love that she was a football reporter and also kind of a girl in pearls.
An amazing mix.
Amazing, absolutely cool.
And so you've got some.
I've got some other things here. So some cuffs, which are quite fun.
You know.
So obviously, for years and years, I was in nightclubs, and getting back into nightclubs. In fact,
well, we've had 2 years of COVID.
Yeah.
So,
so the plan is to open a new place. On the King's Road. It used to be 151. It's going to be called.
Never heard of it.
So I'm revitalising that with my friend Rich and a couple of others, which is going to be great fun. So
I never thought I'd see the day that 151 would be revitalised.
Revitalised by me, but you know, it kind of makes sense.
These are amazing, aren't they?
But aren't they fun? So actually, I got a whole load of these actually in Northampton, little jewellery shop.
Really?
But I love wearing double cuffs because I think they're great fun for big parties. Wearing costume jewellery with real jewellery is great fun.
It's a great mix.
So you know, I wore these for a Studio 54 party. But I've worn them over like cream, plain cream polo necks and things like that. It's just kind of mixing it up.
But they're beautifully made.
I think they're a kind of fake. They're a fake.
They are very like. The Victorian ones you could get that are really fun. They used to wear them over their cuffs. Yeah. Sort of in a great way to sort of, you know, make an outfit look different.
Look really different. I think at some point I'd love to be able to find, or maybe have you guys find, like I'd love two proper big gold cuffs.
Yes.
I think they'd be so cool to have something really smart to wear. Because I like wearing them in the summer actually with like a short sleeve shirt.
Yeah, they're really cool. They're really snazzy.
Shows them off.
Having two of them is very nice as well. It's more of a statement. Beautifully made.
You gave me a cuff years ago as a present, during my birthday present. It was I still wear it in the summer. It's actually very similar to this.
Oh yes, I know.
Remember?
I know exactly. Yeah, I know exactly. And it's
very cool. It's steel.
Yep, and it's like a belt, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a belt.
Exactly. And that's a silver buckle.
Because that's rather amazing.
And this is a silver buckle. I quite like that motif actually.
It's a lovely design, isn't it?
Because it doesn't also, like wearing it as a cuff, it doesn't look too feminine. I mean, like I'm never really kind of like, I'm quite with sort of the Queer Eye boys and saying that, something doesn't need to be feminine or masculine.
Yeah.
Because, we love flowers. I love floral wallpaper. I love chintz. But and that should
but
neither
you're not going to
be,
wear.
Yeah, but it should neither be, should neither be like feminine or masculine.
Yes, no, of course.
And like the old dandies would have, like the 18th century, they were so hugely decorated.
Well, they were rococo and sort
fully
of,
decorated, and I kind of love that. But I love a buckle. That's really cool. I'd probably wear that as a kind of
somehow as
like a kind of like a tie thing. That could also be quite fun.
It'd be very smart, wouldn't it?
That'd be really cool.
Well, actually, your brooches in general. That's a little.
Your piece. These are really cool. I love these diamond brooches.
There's a sweet little one, that isn't it? It's sort of 1940s.
Really lovely.
And then that one.
This I think is magnificent.
You wore that to the V&A.
Yeah, I wore this to the V&A party. I took Ollie to the Conservancy, Hunter Conservancy Ball. Game and Conservancy Ball.
With Martha Sitwell and all that lot, and amazing Kate Byrne.
Kate Byrne, and it was like the Duke of Roxburgh.
Yeah, all these amazing. It was a really amazing group, but it was quite grand.
And I was very jealous because you got the preview of the Fabergé,
which we missed,
which actually we missed
because our Italian friends said, "Oh, don't worry, the exhibition only opens at 8." But of course, in England, most people start eating at 8, so we should have smelt a rat.
We should have just gone in.
Anyway, there we go. Never mind. A ratto.
Never mind.
Anyway,
next one will be you, Zulia. I'll take you the next one. You were looking after the babies. But yeah, no, it was great. But it was great to be able to wear this with black tie, though. So I had
smart.
It was really smart. And that I actually think brooches on black tie are great fun because I was wearing a deep navy Nehru collar jacket from Oliver Brown. And it's quite long, so it does have that slight Indian feel rather than the shorter version, which is slightly more Austrian.
More tunic.
It's quite tunicky, and I wore that with like a huge bow. But and actually having that just like really sets it off.
It's fun, good fun. And as Zuleika always says, they're talking points, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are. I always think it's the greatest conversation starter when you're, we've all been there at the drinks party and you don't know what to say to someone, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I love your brooch.
People loved it.
Yeah.
People loved it. I was going around being like, Parkin Gerrish, your company. I was like, here's a card. Here's a like it. Here's cards for sale.
And funny enough,
people loved it.
A ring here that you bought from the first of the Parkin.
Yes, in fact, this is something I bought from you guys just as you started, and I love it, and I wear it the whole time. and it's a little diamond and sapphire piece. I can take that one off. And I love it because it's very discreet. I actually took it to Paris a couple of weekends ago, and I got loads of compliments on it.
It's very sort of 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very 70s. There's a guy actually who's a very, very dear friend in Paris who used to do accessories for Hermes and Bottega, and he was quite obsessed with it.
Really? How interesting.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, I really love the geometry of it."
Yeah,
the little.
And again, it's neither masculine or feminine to look at. Really, it's quite sort of. It's quite an interesting design, and
it could be a kind of 19th century dandy ring.
Yeah, easily. And I think it works very well. And then what other rings? You've got one or two other things.
I brought some other things.
Your mother's.
So I got my
70s
mother's
ring.
70s. This was her birthday present from her brother, Uncle Charles, and it's super 70s. It's like 90. It's very like 1970s.
It's very cool, isn't it?
Early 70s. Isn't it cool? These are Stephen Webster. And Stephen and Assia are very, very good friends of mine, and I love it. He doesn't actually do this collection anymore. He did the big silver collection for a long time. And it's when he was designing with, hilariously, he was doing a whole load with Christina Aguilera because he did her engagement ring. Nice. This is after he had done Madonna's wedding ring.
Good Lord.
And I love them. And they were going to do this kind of partnership together that ended up. And I think this one may have been a prototype for the Christina one, the Aguilera collection. But he at the time was the creative director of Garrard.
Yes.
So the stones are really. I mean, like it's amazing. And my dear friend Guy, who you guys know very, very well too, he's like, these are really well made.
They're beautiful.
So this is like enamel. I really hope that was jade, and Guy was like, it is not jade.
It's not
jade. If it was jade, it would be worth a fortune.
It's beautiful, though,
but it's some kind of stone. And then this I love because it's really architectural on the side. It's got these gargoyles on the side, and it's got these little gold beads, real gold beads. And real gold around the top, so it's not plate.
No.
And I love it, and I wear it the whole time. It's sort of like, it feels very kind of medieval to me.
It's very smart. They're beautifully designed. They are little bits of architecture.
Really, like beautiful. And he's a proper designer. You know, a very good British designer as well, which I love.
Are they made in Britain as well?
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, these are made in Britain too. So I've got quite a lot of. I didn't bring it all.
And they're collector's pieces. You these
very much so. And I wouldn't part with them, but I'd love to be able to give them on one day as well. I mean, they're great. When I go, not that old yet, but when I go, I'll hand them on. And then this as well, which is actually, can I say what it looks like?
I think yes.
Everyone thinks it looks like a dog's penis, but I kind of adore it. It's so funny. I think it's supposed to be a dragon's claw.
Yes, or a terrier's willy. Yes.
Yeah, or a terrier's willy. But I actually didn't wear these for ages and ages. I started wearing them again. So they go with that very Gucci aesthetic of wearing your shirts undone to the navel, which I do. And then you wear that on the inside of the shirt. Harry Styles does it quite a lot.
You were doing it so before Harry Styles.
Of course,
he always slightly goes for the sort of daily look. He dresses a bit like someone who's going off to the laundrette.
It's a bit frilly.
You know, it's a bit frilly. I think he's trying a bit too hard.
I know.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of want that. I also do quite want like a little bit, certainly at night time, that little bit of kind of rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely.
Slightly sort of, gender. The gender bending that actually Mick Jagger did a lot when.
Absolutely,
which is very rock.
Very, very rock.
And there can never be another Bowie. I can never.
And funny enough, mentioning Stephen Webster earlier, he's very much rock. His look.
Oh yeah. And he dresses a lot of rock stars too. Yeah. That's his thing. These pieces actually, the dragon's claw / dog's willy. I know there's a whole load of rock stars that have these.
Is that silver as well, Henry?
It's a silver, yeah, with coral, and it's proper coral.
Beautifully made.
It's just really cool. Which apparently wards away the devil. So
that's good. Always useful in a nightclub.
I know, very useful in a nightclub.
Gets rid of the devil.
Yes.
Which is why often you have coral was given to babies.
Yes. I was given a coral rattle when I was a child, little Georgian one with a whistle on the end and sort of bells on it.
So smart.
And little girls wore coral necklaces.
Oh yeah.
And is there a particular piece you wish you wore more of?
Yes, I should wear this piece more often. My mother's one. I don't wear it. Sometimes it catches on things. So I'm quite careful.
Might injure someone.
I wear this like loads during that. This was given to me by a dear friend, Carmen Haid, who is a vintage clothing dealer. She had Atelier Maya. Do you remember Atelier Maya? So she dealt in very, very high-end, beautiful Chanel, Dior, blah, 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 from the 50s, 60s. And this is like a quintessential Woodstock 60s piece that a dealer gave her.
Wonderful colours.
Yeah, really cool colours. It was bought in Woodstock in the 60s, so it's very like, it's the quintessence of that kind of summer of love, hippie, which I totally adore. So it's not worth anything, but the value of it being from Woodstock and being from...
It's wonderful.
That
it's
kind
the history of it,
yeah,
isn't
the history
it?
of it I think is
absolutely.
super cool. So, someone would have worn that probably whilst absolutely off their rocker listening to Jimi Hendrix perform.
That's amazing.
Probably.
Yeah, no, sure. Absolutely.
When people were discovering Hendrix and all of the others, I think it's so cool.
It is amazing.
So cool. When like festivals were just like a random gathering in a field, not the organised things they are now.
Organised fun.
If only jewellery could talk.
Yeah. Exactly. So I actually wear it quite a lot in the summer. I've worn it to a couple of festivals. It's kind of like, I feel it's got a slight talismanic quality to it, which I kind of love.
And then you've got a little stick pin in your hand.
I've got a little stick pin in my hand. I love these stick pins. So stick pins are great because you've got Ascot, the little crown, and the whip. I love the whip.
So that's relating to your night clubbing.
So cool. It's definitely related to my night clubbing. But yeah, I mean, I go to, as you guys know, I go to Ascot every year, and I do, or for the past several years, sort of maybe 6 or 7 years, I've been helping them with some of their commentary, talking.
Yes, fashion.
Before it kind of clicks over to Main Street, the mainstream channels, I was helping a bit with the Royal Ascot Racing Channel to talk about fashion and what should one wear. And I love a stick
And they're
pin.
coming back.
And they're coming back.
Yeah, big time. And they're very good for weddings too. But actually, I've sometimes when you've done the same on the lapel, having several of them because they're like a sort of, they're almost like a male version of a sort of charm bracelet because they're lots of different. Like there's a fox and a heart here.
Well, they literally were
and another little heart
show what the wearer, what they were interested in.
Whips,
crowns,
foxes and hearts.
It definitely does sound like a night out in London with me. Great fun.
Love royalty, whips and foxes.
I love them. But I actually, you're right. Wearing things on your lapels, like you've got.
Yeah, I just plunked these on as a circle, deco diamond circle and a deco arrow, which is quite fun.
I had a fake version of that arrow for years which I still have somewhere. That's hilarious. That I used to wear quite a lot. Remember, I used to wear it on a beret. Do you remember?
Oh yes, I do.
This
is 27 years of friendship. So too many extraordinary sartorial
moments.
Speaking of
you were the carnival queen in our village when you were 16, because the girl who was meant to got pregnant, so you had to do it.
Oz dressed me up in a leotard. Where did they find the leotard?
That was from Liz Stoppard in the village. I think and you went down and everyone said, "Oh, it's a lovely lady," and then you got off and someone said, "But it's got a small bulge."
Like small? How dare
It was very, very funny. You were the alternative carnival queen. Then Wendy Holden wrote about carnival queens, and you were in the book.
I was like, I think I'm in the book. Wendy
Holden. You were. Anyway.
And so we touched on about brooches earlier, and brooches are very much coming back into fashion for both women and men.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the growing interest in wearing jewellery for men?
I love it. I think, I've worn jewellery for years and years and years. Wearing jewellery for men is a really fabulous way of accessorising. And we're living in an age now where you can be more decorated as a guy. And I don't think you feel, you don't need to feel unrelaxed about it either. I mean, like...
It's a much less homogenous age.
Much less homogenous. Yeah. There's no judgment. I mean, I've got loads of friends in the LGBTQ community that wear all sorts of things. I mean, they are quite heavily accessorised, which I adore. Pearls have become a big thing recently. I don't know, it's amazing. Like these outfits that are really. I think it was probably due to Drag Race as well. That there was a whole load. There were these kind of massive pearl collars. I've worn pearl collars in my time.
It's probably Princess Michael of Kent as well. She's a great pin-up, isn't she?
Kind of Edwardian-esque, like layers and layers and layers. I kind of love being, that old adage of take something off before you leave the house. I'm like, rubbish. More, add it on, put more on, put more on.
Well, you've got a deco bracelets on here. Yes. But that's paste. It's very clever paste because the emeralds have been given sort of inclusion, something to look like they're real.
They're very smart.
And of course, didn't the makers of the actual, like Cartier, for example, they would work in silver and do the sort of versions like this too. So it's just as well made.
Jewellers, especially after the First World War. And it happened again with the Second World War. In the Second World War, a lot of them went to America, and they couldn't afford to. You know, they originally would have worked for houses like Cartier, etc. And they had the craftsmanship and everything, but the skills, but they didn't have the money, and so they worked on silver. And silver, from talking to various jewellers, is apparently one of the hardest metals to actually work with.
Really?
Gold and platinum is a lot easier.
And they're beautifully made, and that's got little onyx bits.
It's just, you know, it shows exactly that. It's just the clever technique of, I guess, you know, faking it.
And actually, really good quality jewellery like this in terms of fake jewellery, you know, costume jewellery as well. Like you can travel with it really
Absolutely.
well. Yeah, which is like when you don't want to worry about taking
something
that away. Or
so that because that's a lovely black opal.
That's lovely.
It's a Victorian one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a Victorian one.
Big black opal. It's a beautiful one.
It's just really so, you know, the way it carves around your fingers, so it's comfortable to wear, even though it's large and everything.
It's very beautiful, and it's got these amazing colours. It's kind of looking into.
I know that's
a magical sea.
Escapism, isn't it? It's rather sort of travelling vicariously through a piece of
jewellery.
Through
a stone. It's just great.
And then this one here is rather amazing.
And this is signet ring. Next to my signet ring.
We should talk about signet rings, and maybe we should as well.
Yeah, that's true. A little trefoil.
Which is actually a sort of tiara ring. Yeah, and it's like a sort of little chumé tiara, and it's a very clever ring. That
it's so beautiful.
Then you've got the signet ring with your family
signet ring
crest
with the fan crest on, which is great. Mine's a bloodstone, so I've got it carved on a bloodstone, and mine is a stag, front on, with a hackle on its head, which is a military feather, and a whip in its mouth.
More whips.
I know, it's whips.
But signet rings have come really back into fashion again, I think, and jewellery in general. You know, so
a lot of people feel that, you know, signet ring is only you know, for a certain class to show if they're from a wealthy family, etc. But actually, there's so many reasons people love wearing them.
Yeah.
Well, because jewellery is purely escapist, and I think, you know, with the imagination. Everyone, whether they're sort of rich as creases or not, starts somewhere, and I think, you know, jewellery is escapist. It's full of imagination. So if someone wants a signet ring, perhaps they will build their manor house one day, or, you know, it doesn't really matter. But they're wonderful things. I think.
It's an inspiration, and also it is like, you know, the signet ring is like the first piece of jewellery a man can necessarily own as well. It's like something that they would wear every day, probably
and
before they get married,
of course,
as well. Yeah.
But they're beautiful things. I think they're the sort of, you know, we recently went to the Fabergé exhibition, and seeing these extraordinary little works of art, and I think, you know, when something is made beautifully, we marvel at it. And I look at those Stephen Webster things, and you really see the artistry. And then you look at good jewellery from the past, like this and all the rest, and the back of the jewellery is just as good as the front, which is so important, you know, with all his quality sort of stuff.
Made.
You know, you've really got to look, when you're buying a piece of jewellery, you know, it's lasted for a reason because it's well made.
And I love layering, actually, like the signet ring thing. Like, look, I've layered that up.
I think it's really good.
I think it's quite fun.
It is really fun, that, actually. Yeah. What's your favourite stone?
Aquamarine.
Aquamarine.
I'm trying to. I would. Well, actually, I think I've already asked you to look out for an aquamarine for my big birthday. That's this year.
50.
50. 89.
Well, your mother had the most beautiful aquamarine brooch made by.
Yeah, by Darling Guy.
Guy Robertson.
So, Guy Robertson. So there was the brooch and then also a ring.
Yes.
The big ring, the cushion cut.
But you want to find an antique one?
I'd like to find an antique one. Yeah. I think that would be great fun.
It would.
You can get some really amazing sort of.
Big. I think I see. I mean, I do.
Edith Sitwell style.
Edith Sitwell style, exactly. Yeah. I like interesting rings. I like small rings like this. They're great fun for kind of sort of pooching around. But I do like, when I go to like a big event, it's nice to have a massive.
Yes.
Like the big citrine that I wear.
Yes.
Yes. I bought with you, which I love, and it's like it's an impactful because it's huge.
Yes.
And it's not incredibly valuable, but it doesn't matter. It's a great piece. I love the fact that it's like a nice, powerful, you know.
It's important.
You've got several nicknames. One of them, which I love, is the Dowager.
The Dowager.
The Dowager.
And where does that come from?
It's because I was known as Granny at school. Because I'd be sitting at the... Where did it come? I think it was the back... That road trip where I was in the back of the car.
And you like, pass Granny some biscuits.
And I'd always have Werther's Originals in the bag.
He was a proper old Granny.
Proper old Granny with my handbag on my knee. Handing out Werther's Originals. And then that eventually became the Dowager.
And then you were occasionally quite imperious.
Yeah.
No, not only when you needed to be.
When I need to be.
You know, like... Do desist or something like that, and it was very stop it, yes. And,
you know,
and then there's that one time when someone stole all the vodka on holiday once. That girl did, and I was trying to make her feel better and say the gin, and I said, "Oh, don't worry, you're forgiven." And you went, "But not forgotten, dear." So there's been sort of a number of comments like that, and then also I suppose Henry wearing quite a lot of sort of grand sort of pashminas and things, and doing draped.
First stoles and jewellery. I suppose maybe because I wear so many.
Yes, and you have been mistaken. I once introduced you as Princess Michael of Kent to someone, and then you said, "Marry Christine," and you completely convinced them.
Completely convinced them. They loved me.
When you didn't have the beard though.
I didn't have the beard.
There's also that story where
I got a curtsy.
You did got a curtsy.
Someone thought you were being rude because you said.
Oh no, that was terrible. Yes, yeah. There has been a number of problems. We all went to the ballet or the opera or something. A group of us, and Henry was dawdling, and I said, "Come on, you old trout, let the dowager through." And this old lady who was walking near you suddenly said, "You're an extremely rude young man." And I had to try and explain myself out of the situation. It's him. We call him the dowager. She's like, "Oh, I'm not having any of that."
No, I was like, "I'm on your side. Very kind."
Yes.
How kind.
And then you were given a prayer card in Westminster Abbey once.
Yeah.
You were wearing a full sort of length coat.
A woman who clearly didn't have it all together, but I was wearing a full length. I was wearing an enormous coat. I didn't have a beard at the time, and I had what was known at the time as like crispy hair or my Belgravia Barnet. It was huge. I used to roll dry it out, and I actually did look like one of those kind of women that float around
Eaton Square,
because it was so large, my hair. And from behind, I could have been taken for a stately older woman.
You were.
I did look like a stately older woman. Oh my God, my hair was bigger than it is now, if that's able to believe. But yeah, so she gave me a prayer card, and I said, "Thank you." And she said, "Oh!" She snatched it off me. And she was like, "I thought you were a lady.
That's a lady's card.
It's a lady's card." And snatched it off me and ran away.
And no, you couldn't do that now.
No, you couldn't do that now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd have her up for
religious persecution.
Gender persecution.
Oh dear.
Gender neutral.
But jewellery's always been important to you, though, hasn't it?
Jewellery has always been important to me. Coming back to the topic.
Yes.
Yeah, jewellery's always been important to me. I
And
love it.
And how do you think your tastes will change? Do you think you can see? You said you want to invest in more vintage pieces, and
my taste in jewellery will probably. I hopefully will get more expensive. I think I'll end up just buying.
You need to find a sugar daddy.
I need to find a sugar daddy. But I'm trying to not buy crap jewelry, and that was I don't go into Swarovski, which has its place, but I don't buy all of that kind of junk anymore. I just want to buy nice, good pieces.
No, but what's lovely is the things you buy over the years, you still wear some of them occasionally. Wear this and that. That's over 20 years now, probably.
Yeah.
You've been, sort of doing since you were a teenager.
Yeah.
You've been, buying jewellery and
I
things.
love it. Great fun. And I think probably it'll be more rings and more brooches. I think that's probably. I can see that's the way I'm going.
And do you have a comment on the fact that tiaras are coming back into fashion?
I am thrilled that tiaras are coming back into fashion. I think they should be encouraged.
Definitely.
I think dressing up should be encouraged at all moments.
And you've got a number of good friends who are involved in hairdressing and tiaras. Have they had to sometimes put them in?
Tiaras have become a huge thing because back in the day. When the Harrovians used to be in the House of Lords, used to trot along to Neville on Pont Street, who's my mother's hairdresser, has done my mother's hair for years and years and years, since like the 80s. And it was hilarious because you went in there just for the state opening of Parliament, and one of his technicalities was tiara hair. So they'd rock up in a London black cab with a tiara in in the States, a Safeway bag. It would be put on, set in the hair, because it's got to be set in properly. get back into the black cab, you get into your gown, and you go off to the House of Lords, ready for the state opening of Parliament. And now it kind of like, obviously the state opening doesn't happen in the same. It happens, but you know, you don't have quite the range of jewels shown off as there were
in those days. Yes,
exactly. Pauline Prescott doesn't quite kick it, whereas you know, I remember there was one amazing state opening of Parliament. I actually took you to one, but we did,
when I was 18. I think.
We were 18, but there was another one. Yeah. I wasn't the one. Maybe I am cross purposes, but there was one where Jamie Lee Curtis was there.
Oh yes,
do you remember seeing her? Because she,
I think I do. Yes,
she was married to, and I can't remember which. She was married to a Viscount or
Lord. Oh yeah, I can't.
Lord something. You'd have to look it up.
Hayden Guest.
Hayden Guest. That's it. And anyway, and it was so cool seeing this Hollywood star.
Yes,
the star of Nightmare on Elm Street, and she was wearing. I remember it. She was wearing this very simple tiara. It was it kind of went into a point. It was kind of shaped like that. It was really beautiful.
Wonder Woman
style.
Yes.
It actually was Wonder Woman style tiara. I think they're great. I think they should be encouraged.
They should be, shouldn't they? Because more of them are selling than ever apparently at the moment.
So
all these tiaras. But the funny thing is, if you're lucky enough to be at one of those lovely weddings where suddenly a very sort of perfectly sort of quiet country family is getting married, and suddenly the daughter's wearing some enormous, what they call fender, on her head. You know, great big, the family tiara, like comes out of the bank, sort of dusty and sort of, a beautiful thing. And all these wonderful jewels. And being in the jewellery industry is very interesting, isn't it? Because you do sometimes unearth wonderful things.
Well, even with brooches, they originally came from a tiara, they've been broken up. Because it was from the 50s where they just started not wearing the tiaras, because even if you were a lady of status, you decided to put flowers in your hair. It was the fashion of the time.
Yeah.
So and so they were like, we don't wear our tiaras anymore.
And jewellery was often very adaptable. So a tiara would be a necklace. It could be a brooch. It could be several brooches. And it's very interesting. So I think there was because I think in those days, if someone was very rich, they'd have to dress so many different times, so many different ways throughout the day. Every night, if you were at a house party for a long weekend, whatever, every night you'd have to look slightly different, which you wouldn't mind at all.
Which I wouldn't have minded at all. I mean, I basically dress my dressing, the dressing gong. When the dressing gong goes, I basically live like an Edwardian, sort of changing 7 times a day.
Quite right.
It's wonderful.
But
so bring back the tiaras.
But you're very good because you live, because I know this for a fact, Henry runs a very, very good house. Yeah, and he's perfect. He can be upstairs.
Well, you did live together.
Yeah, we did for half a year. 2 years.
2 years,
yeah, and it was very funny because Henry was always, if the flat was clean, his room was covered in all these boxes with all these different clothes. Literally, I don't know how you moved in there. Henry's room was covered in all these boxes full of clothes. And anyway, every week the flat would be cleaned, and Henry would then go, "Oh, she never cleans it properly," and then clean for hours afterwards. But you're very good because you're both upstairs and downstairs. And I've had said this to me for my tours. They've said, "You drive us, you work for us all day, then you suddenly host us." And I think you've been a very good mixer.
You've got to be able to do both.
You do really.
You have to be able to do both.
And your jewellery must accommodate all of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know, and speaking of which, thank you so much for coming along.
Oh my God, my pleasure. What joy.
And thank you to Pot Row as well for allowing us to be here.
Pleasure. Enjoy.
A style icon in his home setting.
I love it. Velvet.